You're listening to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
I'm Eric Stromer.
And have you, Eric Stromer, ever done a backsplash that just kind of fouled up somehow? Just didn't work? Just kind of looked...
Well, I'll tell you why I haven't. Because I'm a tile king.
Okay.
I'm the guy that put tile in for years and years and years, and Backsplash is the crown jewel of the tile installation, and that's where you show off your skills and your talent, and it's got to be perfect. I suppose I did one when I first started out that wasn't that great.
Maybe the caulking went a little off.
The grout might have not been as good as it could have been. It might have been a little, wavy line to the tile.
That grout and you, I mean, you're such a perfectionist, right?
Man, my fingers are like, they're like, Da Vinci's hands, if you will. So good.
So what, step one, you said that, you were the king and you are the king of this. But, I mean, before you became the king, how do you become such a good person at doing backsplash? What are the keys?
The key is, number one, you have to make sure that you're not getting too crazy and going outside of what your existing countertop is, and trying to put something that just doesn't work. Design-wise, I mean. So it's reminiscent to me of people who have specific roofs on their house, and then they paint a house color that is completely wrong and doesn't match the roof tile.
So our counter is Formica, and now we want to do granite as a backsplash. No.
Bad idea. It's like, bad brown pants with a bad, a color that doesn't match, essentially. So you really want to make sure that you're referencing what the material is on your counter in terms of design for your backsplash, okay? Number two is just the installation. How does that look? How do you do it? So if it's not a solid slab and you're going to attempt to do the backsplash yourself with tile, then you're going to want to make sure that your countertop obviously has to be perfectly level. And then from there, you're going to tile up, and you're going to use, the best possible combination of color and tile so that you're not intersecting into your switches in the exact wrong place, right? So you had this experience in your kitchen where the installer didn't consider that the stripe is going to go right through the switch plate, right? Which can look great if it's done right. It looks beautiful, but if it's done wrong, it feels like, I should have put the stripe a little higher. It'll feel like that, right? So you want to do a layout, and essentially you can do one of two things.
Like with paper or something?
You can you can do that, or you can draw a trace around your tile on the countertop, one course. You'll have your if it's a 4x4 tile, you'll have that square, and then you'll take your liner or your stripe, and you'll sketch that out just so that you have sort of a view of like how this is going to lay out going from the counter to underneath the cabinet. So if it's a bunch of different sizes and shapes, trace out one course going up. And then look at it and go, you know what, we should probably lower it here or raise this thing here, and then you'll sort of have an idea. And then you can pre-cut your cuts on the counter, and they'll go one course, and then you know exactly where that's going to line up along with your switch plates. So that's kind of, the strategy of how you lay it out, right?
But then here's my question.
Yes.
In terms of your counter, where does the counter end and where does the backsplash begin? Especially at that... It's at the bottom part, like the bottom of the wall and the furthermost back part of your countertop.
Sure.
Where do those connect, and how? It seems like you might go too far. There might be too much of an overlay if you weren't careful.
Well, I understand that. Or you may want to think about, here's what happens a lot with installations, where if the countertop has movement in it at all, for example, if you're like over a dishwasher, and sometimes if it's not insulated correctly with tar paper underneath the counter, the steam from the dishwasher over the years can make the counter start to bow up on you. And then that's going to create cracking where the countertop meets the backsplash.
Meaning moisture and bad.
So you want to definitely make sure that you've got that nailed, and you've got a nice solid 3/4-inch base, and then you do your cement or your wonder board, and then you do your tile on top of that. But what a lot of tile installers forget to do is create there's mesh tape that'll hold the corner together. So you'll have a little bit of the mesh tape on the drywall on the backsplash, and it's going to right angle onto the counter. So it's tied together as one solid unified surface, right?
That's a secret.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people won't do. And if you don't do cement, which is what you should do, a lot of times you'll use wonderboard on the countertop, and then you'll just go right on the drywall on the backsplash. But you have to marry those two with some kind of a mesh tape
and
first.
So can we buy this mesh tape?
It comes, it's exactly the same stuff you would use for drywall installation to make seams, unify, right? So you can, you can buy it at any.
It sounds like
store.
A miracle.
It's a miracle worker. If you don't have it, you're going to be in trouble about 2-3 months down the line.
Wow.
You'll start to see that continual cracking where the countertop meets the backsplash.
So that's critical then before we do any of this stuff.
Yeah, and then also you may want to think about having some lights, under-counter lights installed so that you have that beautiful cascading light that comes down on this great tile that you've just spent money to put in to give you the look of that, oh my God, look, you've got this glass tile or this great design I made or whatever it is. It's really nice to have lighting there. So you can either buy the LED stuff that you apply to the underside that stick, or you can have it wired, and it's a little bit more expensive, but it's a great idea. Okay, and then if you don't want to do tile, there's all sorts of other opportunities for you. You can do, for example, the pressed metals that look like copper or gold or silver, and those come in pre-cut panels, and they're very, very simple to install. You literally just glue them with construction adhesive, and then you put one next to the other, and you have to cut that stuff with tin snips, so that may be a little tricky, but not too bad. And it's always the electrical boxes that throw you, so don't be intimidated by that. When you do cuts around electrical boxes, you take the switch plate off, and then you have to understand that you're going to have to cut exactly the same size as the drywall opening that is around the box. So all your tile has to be cut to that point. It doesn't want to go into the box because that's where the electrical wiring is, and you have to make sure the switch fits back in there.
Get clumpy otherwise.
Exactly. And so the ultimate fix a lot of times for people, if they cut it wrong, you can get larger switch plates than normal.
Oh.
So they'll go out further around the tile that you just put in to cover the mistake, right? So those are available, and those are really helpful if you make a mistake. Okay. So make sure you do that.
And it's just a larger version.
Just a larger version. It's like maybe, a quarter or half inch larger than a traditional
So wait
plate.
a minute. So is that kind of like the giveaway that you made a mistake?
Whoops.
Oh,
hey, I like your big switch plates.
You're one of those guys.
Whoops.
Love
yeah,
it.
exactly.
I mean, basically, that's the only reason why people use the large switch plates is it was a mistake.
Absolutely.
So it's basically get a Sharpie pen and put an arrow like.
Look, dunce.
Oops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoops, I did it again. There's other ideas too. If you want to get a little more kitschy, for example, you might have a hardwood top or a butcher block top, and then you could do like old antique bottle caps and glue those to the drywall, and then grout with non-sanded grout and fill in those cracks. Now, grouting is not easy if you don't know what you're doing, and especially non-sanded. So that's the stuff that has no grit to it. So you use non-sanded grout in grout joints that are smaller than 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so anything bigger you got to use sanded grout because you need to fill a larger area, and the sand provides structural integrity to the grout.
Okay.
So that won't crack on you. So the little tiny cracks, you're going to use non-sanded grout, but you have to be careful. You have to mix it the consistency of peanut butter. It can't be too runny. It can't be too dry, and then you throw it on with your grout float. And if you were doing something like this bottle cap thing, you would use non-sanded because it'll scratch if you use sand. It'll scratch glass tile. It'll scratch things that you're trying to keep pristine. And the non-sanded grout is more like peanut butter, and it won't have grit to it. So you can go ahead and put it in the cracks, and it'll look fine.
I like that bottle cap idea. That sounds
Isn't that
neat.
cute?
Yeah.
I know. It's a great idea. You can also do anything you can imagine for a backsplash. It could be, even if you were to do the wallpaper route, you could do soup can labels. You could do wallpaper remnants. You could do, glass tile. You could do cork. You can do cork's kind of cool because it becomes like a bulletin board instead of having.
Oh, like the wine corks.
Yeah. You could do something like that, or just cork, sheeting material, which is something you could actually, put pins in and have your things pinned up to the backsplash. Might be kind of kitschy and cool. But also, are you a cook? Are you somebody that's going to be mixing a lot of things? Are you going to throw tomato sauce on the backsplash? If so, you're going to definitely want to have tile or a solid surface so that you can easily clean up.
Yeah, you wouldn't want, after all that, with your little bottle caps, to have, marinara sauce.
Right on,
or is there something you could put over it, like some kind of
then it just seems like you have to really know kind of what you do in that space before you choose a backsplash. Again, if you're a cook or there's water, tile or stone or something that's waterproof is a much better
There's
idea.
always those mini subway tiles. Those are so clean
Aren't
looking.
those great?
Yes.
And those come on sheets. They come in 12 by 12 sheets, so there's mesh glued to the back of the tile to continue the pattern, make sure that it stays the same. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable and familiar with how to work with that material, because that can get a little tricky. When you put those sheets up on the wall, a lot of times the thin set will sag if it's not the right consistency. So you put your piece of tile up, and then like over a next few minutes, you'll just see it go, and it just starts to sink down onto the countertop.
Oh no!
So you have to use these things called spacers, which are
Yes.
little rubberized squares or crosses that go in between the tile. So there's a whole science and art to it, and it's easy to do, but you definitely have to do a little bit of research so you know what you're doing before.
Well, I know that you're a tile guy, but you're also a vinegar guy. When we come
I
back,
love vinegar.
wait to hear all the things you can do with vinegar to just improve your home. Eric Strober, Cindy Dole, you're listening to Home Wizards.
On our way home.